I call this meeting to order. I declare that a quorum is present and the media has been notified. Do I have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So move.
Second.
I will have a motion to approve the agenda. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion? And all of those in favor of this motion, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, then we move down to agenda item number 3, the budget workshop. And I'll turn it over to our superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I'm going to go down to the podium and make just a few remarks before we get started with the presentation. So, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to present the 2016-2017 Superintendent's Recommendation for the budget. I'm really pleased tonight to share the product of what I consider to be several months of very hard work together. We've been talking about budget in my cabinet since at least January. Since March, we've been engaging stakeholders throughout the district, including the board. As part of our work, we also compiled a list of items that had been reduced from the budget beginning as early as 2009 based on the economic downturn. The past reductions were evaluated in terms of the need to begin a restoration process, and you will see some of them in the recommendations that I'm bringing to you this evening. During March, we went through an extensive process to solicit budget input and request using a new electronic process that allowed every school and department an opportunity to present detailed requests pertinent to their school or department. The information we received was compiled and shared with you at your workshop on April the 18th. As the process continued, we asked the board members to identify your priorities, and you did. The board's top 3 priorities emerged as competitive compensation at the mandated level and above. Secondly, growth. And third, restoration of budget items that we had lost since 2009. Details from the information gathering process are going to be briefly reviewed when Brantley does the presentation. This is an unusual budget year, and I thought the unusual budget years were past, but not. So Mr. Thomas is going to share some specifics about what makes this such an unusual budget for Berkeley County Schools. This unusualness motivated us to be creative, to evaluate the budget opportunities and obstacles with what I consider to be a laser-like focus on finding ways to address as many of the budget priorities as possible, even within the monetary constraints that we faced. Emerging strategies included looking for efficiencies. Secondly, evaluating options to do business in some different ways. Third, looking closely for ways to reallocate existing funds for new expenditures. Brantley will speak in more detail about the outcome of these strategies, and you'll get to see some of the things that we came up with for your consideration. I mention it because this laser-like focus allowed us to bring forward many more desirable budget improvements than we would have thought possible when we first talked with you in workshop on April the 18th. The budget recommendations that you're going to see this evening represent our efforts to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and create a viable budget that will support our strategic plan's vision of empowering all students for success and our mission to ignite in every student a passion for world-class knowledge and skills through dynamic instruction and personalized educational opportunities. I appreciate that contributors brought to the table their very best thinking. I especially appreciate the untiring efforts of my cabinet when I said, yes, we're going to talk about budget again. And they really challenged each other to use all the pieces and parts and bring you a budget which is financially smart and enables us to meet many of our needs within the district. So with these introductory comments, I'm going to turn it over to Brantley Thomas, who's going to fill in all the details for you. Brantley.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, and Mrs. Blackburn, thank you for the introductions. I don't know why it's not a full screen, but I think it'll still work. But wanted to kind of go through the actual details of where we've been and where we want to go. This is a reminder of the budget calendar. If you can tell, we're at the last three bullets as far as moving towards an approved budget for 16-17. We're at the board workshop today. Next June 14th will be first reading, and then June 28th we'll have the public hearing and board approves the budget. Wanted to remind you again of the April 18th presentation where we had gone through pretty quickly areas of growth positions for the district, opening of the schools, and other items related to STEP and cost of living. With that information coming in pretty quickly, I wasn't able to scrub it as much as possible, so you'll see an updated version of that, which gives us a lot more flexibility in approving priorities. Wanted to remind you again of the projected revenue. All the numbers you've seen before, except for that yellow line at the bottom, we were able to finally get Berkeley County and all the other school districts in the state, the information related to the new bus driver salary, which again was one of the other priorities listed on your matrix. Also wanted to bring your attention to the third line down, which is the increase of millage on Act 388, basically 3.9 or 4 mills. Without that, there are some things we will not be able to do. So that'll be part of the theme of this budget, moving forward to the first reading and final approval. So again, the number before was 18 million. Now we're at 19, a little over 19, almost 19.1. These, I think you have a hard copy, but these wanted to remind you again of the unfiltered process in which we went through and just developed requests from the departments and also from schools related to things that they wanted to include in this year's budget. And this will also be a document that we can use for 17, 18, and on. As if you remember, I'm working on a multi-year budget process where a 5-year plan where I kind of know where the pitfalls are with cash and that sort of things related to opening schools, and depending on what the state does with based on cost and or those sorts of things. Again, those lists related to the positions were about 4.9 million, and the non-salary school request ended up being 900,000. A lot of the non-salary school requests were mostly targeted towards school supplies or classroom supplies. This is the matrix that Ms. Blackburn referred to earlier as far as the different priorities by district of which you represent. And we wanted to highlight again that competitive compensation above mandate, growth, and then restoration of items. So we wanted to kind of remind you those seem to be the theme of your input into the budget process, and you'll see hopefully in some of the Ms. Blackburn's recommendations those being targeted, but also some other items being targeted in a different way. What makes this budget unusual? Again, want to remind you this is based on the acting on Act 388 and raising those mills by 3.94 mills. 4 mills in the past, have been more like 7 or 8 because of the consumer price index and the population growth for the consumer price index for the state and the population growth for the county of Berkeley, not the school district, but the county, was a lot higher. And I questioned the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office about that, and that's just, so I think in the future, we'll start seeing the population percent go up, I hope to see in the upcoming years with all the development going on. So I would think that would increase. I was also, the consumer price index was 0.2 something percent or 2%. So to me, that seemed odd as well because of all the development going on and pricing going up. You see gas going up, you see all the other stuff going up. I thought that number might be higher, but again, that might be in future years. Hopefully, we'll get back to where we've seen it before related to that. The opening of 3 new schools, or 2 new schools, and one for 17-18, but having the staff in place to develop the athletics, the curriculum, the enrollment and all that kind of stuff for the high school. So that is definitely an unusual event. And if you remember during the referendum discussion, we tried to talk about staggering the opening of schools because of the impact on, if we were to do all in one year, it'd be almost impossible to do anything else. So we wanted to stagger that, and we'll continue that strategy as we open new schools related to the growth of the county with Volvo and whatever else comes our way. In addition, the cost of living increase, the new allocation, the cost of living and the step increase, and the new allocation of $1.062 million for the new state for bus drivers. There's, depending on what version passes, there is a 2 or 4% mandated increase on the bus driver scale. A 2% increase would equate to about $260,000 cost in the increase in the hourly rate for the bus drivers, and 4% would be about $520,000. We have elected at this point in time, as other school districts have, variety of implementations related to this money to put it all in bus drivers. And we're not mandated to, but depending on what version passes, it's either 2 or 4. So so that'll be something that we can talk about in discussion related to. If we go with the 4%, that leaves about $500,000 left to do something else with. But the other school districts, in talking with them, they're doing a variety of the minimum 2 or 4%, or all of it, or up to 5%. So there's a variety of things going on related to this particular allocation.
Mr. Thomas,
Yes.
both the cost of living and step increases for our teachers as well as bus drivers,
Yes.
especially the mandated increase, did the state provide sufficient amount of revenue to cover that expense?
That would be one of the other unusual items in this discussion is the base student costs really did not cover the 2% cost of living. The step has always been a mandated state regulation, but the base student cost increase did not fund really, but maybe half of that increase for the cost of living. So that is an unfunded mandate.
So it's half funded and half unfunded.
Correct.
All right, so that certainly will help
Yeah.
steer us towards needing that 4 mills.
Correct.
All right.
And we just kind of talked about it in the next bullet. This is also the first year in many of which the state has mandated new revenue. Well, again, we talked about that as well related to the salary schedules. So again, the base student cost went up $150, but we're well below where we should be by $581 based on the Board of Economic Advisors, where the state should be funding education currently. And again, I'll talk about the base student allocation being below the 2006-07 level. So we're, all those years have passed without anything going off, but more stuff added, and cost of living step, and all that sort of thing. So we've had to manage balancing budgets with on a shoestring. Budget strategies. We looked for efficient ways to accomplish different tasks of things that appeared on the priority list related to, most typically these things, supplies, restoration of supplies, restoration or some technology and one-to-one initiatives, and portable laptops for classroom teachers, and capital improvements. We have, through evaluating current positions with the general fund, we're actually going to allocate some extra money for schools this year to buy supplies and hopefully have those in inventory for the next school year. We'll evaluate that every year to try to see if we can redo that, or as things get better with the base student cost, we'll get that back to where it should be in the general fund. On the technology initiative, if you remember those priorities, they were a one-to-one initiative, and the base student, the portable laptops. That was about a $2 million price tag, if I believe, or maybe a little bit over. But we were able to look at Diane's group of accounts and work a way to where it doesn't impact the general fund and go ahead and address that initiative. So we'll have one-to-one in, 3 to 8 or 3 to 5? I forgot.
It's a 3-year plan. So
Three-year
we
plan,
targeted
right.
schools that were closest to being at 1-and-1,
Correct.
and we're building off of what they have. But it is a 3-year plan to go 1-to-1, district-wide.
Right. And then also in the area of capital improvements, you saw definitely a need for roofs and that sort of stuff. So we're looking at the same kind of strategies to allocate some extra money so operations can do some more projects. We also looked at, as you know, when you develop a budget, you always have people leaving for retirement or whatever reason, and we're hiring new people back. That delta is what has kind of helped us with budget practices, but we're able to look and allocate about $1.5 million to the total picture, and you'll see how that impacts our ability to address the priorities.
And essentially, that same $1.5 million is what we're going to fund or recommend funding the supplies out of current year,
right,
and the capital out of current year.
Right. So this is the new picture. If you remember that number being 390,000, we're now at 4.7. And again, some of the major changes from that to the other is reductions in the growth positions, some changing in the Opie and Philip Simmons Elementary and Middle and the high school. And then we talk about the bus driver mandates as well. So when you add all those up, you get 15.9 million, and you have available for other needs of the district 4.7. So,
I'd like to just comment
sure.
on the growth positions, if you don't mind,
Sure.
Brantley. On that line, growth positions on district enrollment, we allocated in there, we've already allocated to the schools 33 units for growth, and we're holding 10 additional units on that line to address critical needs that might come up between now and the start of school year.
Right.
So there are units in that line that have not been allocated and would be available to address situations that might occur.
Right. Good. So here we come down with the superintendent's recommendations. As we looked at the competitive salary schedule as it relates to Dorchester 2 and 4, that was definitely a district and a board priority. But in looking at putting resources in a line item with a salary schedule that's really needs to have a wholesale look at it, we decided to go with like a $1.4 million recommendation, but also come together with a salary study that would impact all salary schedules, and have that as a document that we can use in the future to address the deficiencies in our salary schedule. We will also ask them to look at salary schedules that are just all over the place, like 5 and 10 and 15 different groupings, and we want to like consolidate some of those and be more efficient in those categories as well. So we wanted to address the competitiveness, but we did want to put, if we could have an objective look at the salary schedules and our compensation, we thought that might be a best practice for future development.
A question of clarification. So the cost of that salary study is included in that one?
We will be able to do that without, not this, but we'll be able to do that in current, with reallocating some cost that's in my area. So,
Gotcha. Thank you.
The additional bus driver compensation, the $820,000, which is what is left after the cost of living and the step, we are recommending or proposing that we use all of that to impact the bus driver's scale. And with that, we are able to Mr. Fleming was able to get me some competitive, some other salary schedules from other school districts, and we would be able to get our range, if we were to do that, from currently 1164 to 1849 to 1306 to $20.75 per hour, which is a huge impact on recruiting drivers and hopefully keeping them. And that would make us competitive. Other items, we kind of grouped these in categories. The Nexus Personnel. We talked about some of the restrictions or some of the stresses in Medicaid. We wanted to possibly move the Director of Special Programs to the general fund. Instructional technologists, we saw that in a lot of requests related to the online process and also at the cabinet level. English language learners, the old ESOL, I think, was definitely a district and superintendent recommendation. And this is a second allocation. There's one in the growth numbers. An HR, human resources technician, Tamira, if you remember hearing that discussion, mirroring how payroll works, having a one-in-one person collaborate on HR and personnel to kind of be more efficient in that process. Psychologist, we wanted to make an impact on growth in those psychologists, as there's definitely a need for that, and I think there's some ratio that we're trying to get to, which will take us a while, but we, one step at a time. Social workers, adding one FTE there. Fine arts coordinator, which was one of the restoration items and the superintendent's recommendation. If you see the legend at the bottom, you can kind of tell. If you remember,
Actually, a school request.
a school request too. Yes, right.
Minor in the district.
Yes. And then, so there was, forgot how many years ago, but there was 2 fine arts coordinators, and now there are 1. Reading coordinators, district, CTE facilitator, restoration, diesel mechanic, which was a district, 3 nurses. There was some nurses at 3 particular schools that have a high level of services that we wanted to provide them some resources to get those services done timely, but also effectively, but would also be able to hopefully increase our Medicaid reimbursement as well from being able to document what we're doing there. In the area of transportation, a lot of work with clerks in that area related to time, time for payroll, that sort of thing. So we wanted to get better with that. School resource officer at Berkeley High. Full release mentors. Talked about a grant writer, which we had one a long time ago, but it's a district level request that we think we could help and generate revenue and funds for the school district to do some things and improve services. Administrative assistants for the supervisors, that there's only 1 now, and I've heard the word, one arm paper hanger kind of thing, so they're hopefully allow some assistance there. Evaluator, administrative assistant, and leadership. And then other, we've had some discussion about rural initiatives, and that's a district and board priority, and special programs for Bonner and Whitesville. We wanted to put that up there as well. So if you see the total of those, that mirrors the number of the available resources to fund these positions. So we wanted to kind of go through those, and we'll have some discussion a little bit about what you want to do, if you like it, if you don't like it, or just some discussion about it. Discussion.
I just had a question about the SRO for Berkeley.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not one there now?
I think there is one there now, but this will be a second one.
And that's because of increased numbers in students or problems or what?
Increased student population and the complexity of the campus. There were actually 2 school requests for additional SROs. One was Berkeley High School, the other one was Cane Bay. Cane Bay, because of adding a program, is going to have an officer there from the Sheriff's Department, I believe. And so that one's being addressed because of adding their law enforcement academy. And so that left Berkeley as the other large school, Goose Breeze Creek, I believe, already has a second officer, so that would treat those 3 large high schools in a similar manner.
And so this cost takes into account the same, I mean, it's the
Yes,
same
same.
accounting as all the others?
Yes, right.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
The social worker, that's a full-time FTE, is that the social worker to support the rural initiative, or is that an additional social worker? I'm sorry, I'm asking you,
Kevin,
I'm
I
looking
think
at
it's
Dr.
an-
O'Gorman.
I
Please
think it's an additional.
fill in, yeah.
Yeah.
There's one under the superintendent's recommendation for growth. There's one included in the cost for the.
For the rural initiative. Does the rural initiative also include the transportation reimbursement and this, we talked about signing bonuses and transportation reimbursement. Is that all total together? Or
It is not in there at this time. That's something that the board could discuss if you wanted to add it. We included Read 180, a social worker, Kevin,
And the teachers for.
the teachers for the Read 180, and that's pretty much the $515,000.
And those, that Math 180, Read 180, those teachers and that social worker will service St. Stephen, JK, and Cross. Okay. And Timberland.
Okay.
Makes my heart happy.
Okay.
I have one more question. The special programs for Bonner and Whitesville, that cost is just 1 year maintaining what they have right now?
Yes.
Or is that to train, are they
I need
needing
to-
more teachers to make it grow, I guess is part of my, if that's funded?
This is not a growth number. This is a maintenance number. They've been paying for some of these resources out of Title I and child care. And so really the question before us is this a program that the district supports, or is this a program that the school needs to find ways to massage their own budgets to be able to support? So this picks up what the schools requested,
Right.
that we offset at the district level, that they felt like they could no longer maintain from their regular school-based funds or allocation.
Just for clarification,
Yes, sir.
Superintendent Blackburn, Whitesville is an existing program. I'm assuming that's the Montessori.
It's the Montessori.
Now, the special program at Bonner, is that a new request, or are they already, because that's not the arts request?
That's the arts request.
So it is, so it would be new and not existing.
It replaces units that they have been paying for from Title I and/or basic allocation. There are some restrictions on them being able to do a unit from Title I any longer. And so that one they can't do. And the other one, I think they've been begging and borrowing and using a little piece of child care and several other revenue sources to be
Right.
able to pay for the second one. So they are asking, does the district want to sustain the arts infusion for that school that impacts all the kids at that school?
Okay, so they're already doing it?
Yes, they
Okay.
are.
Thank you. This looks a whole lot better, Superintendent and staff.
Give us about 2 more months, we might see.
You don't have 2 more months, Mr. Thomas. You don't have it.
No, I
Yeah,
don't.
It looks a lot better than that first workshop we had. I can certainly see the improvements. Thank you for your work and effort.
Well, I don't know where you got the money from, but I tell you,
Let's just don't ask, Reverend.
I'm not going to ask any questions on that. But when I looked at this and I saw we had $390,000, and then I look at this figure tonight and I said, wow, you must have some magic fingers somewhere. But it looks good. And I am pleased that
I'm
you
sorry.
did include the rural initiative in there, because those areas are areas where I represent, totally represent. That's a new initiative, and I hope that the board would agree and support that, because that is really a need.
You have my support, Reverend Barnes. Not only are we providing those special initiatives to those children in our rural schools, as you know, and I know, that pays off also in the classroom.
Yes.
So certainly the dividends are there for that investment.
I would just say thank you for working so hard on all of this. I'm going to disagree. I don't think there's any magic to it. I think you need this amount of time and discussion, and that's what I cued in on with Ms. Blackburn, is how much time and energy all of you have taken to really get down to the nitty-gritty, and it's not an easy thing to do. And I wish it were magic.
I do
And
too.
I wish we had pixie dust and all that kind of thing, but I could feel that a lot was happening, and based on some of the questions that I had asked and information that was coming back, it's clear that you have really been going at it. And so thank you for that. It is so much more encouraging, but you guys always deliver quality stuff. And while I'm just as worried as everyone else about not having enough money, I don't worry about you or the staff.
Thank you.
And I just want to say that again publicly.
And this is still going to be a work in progress through June 28th. There's stuff that could happen, hopefully for the better, but hopefully it will stay consistent, if not get better. So we'll still be watching it and provide any updates at the first reading and the public hearing.
Well, my prayer is the community is listening to the newspapers and news, talking about how the teacher shortage is coming towards South Carolina. And when we get out there and we are competing for these students or these teachers, if we don't have a salary schedule that's very competitive, we're not going to get the teachers here. And then we will hear some hollering going on in our community when we don't have enough teachers. Right now, we are seeing this with the buses. The fact that we're short bus drivers, we're short, the number of buses, we're growing, and, as long as we're growing like this, we're going to have the money, and we're going to have to reach out there and find every source we possibly can. I'm tickled to see us looking at a grant writer, because even though that's money that's hard to get, it's out there, and other schools are getting it, other school districts, and we deserve to get out there and get it. Some of our schools do that.
Yeah,
It's so much easier, and much bigger ones can be gotten by someone who does this all the time.
Right.
So thank you for that.
And also, you reminded me of something I wanted to say earlier too, is we'll take this on the road and try to get some, rotaries or I've talked to the teacher forum. I'm going to be able to go there and talk to them about it. And with school being out pretty soon, there are probably not a whole lot of chances to go to a school, but hopefully some rotaries or I'm teaching a class at the Citadel, which will be a lot of staff as well. Not Dr. Murray's, but somebody else's. But so we'll take it on the road as well. We also, I think, having it taped tonight, so maybe we could use that as a means to also promote it, and this will be on our website as well.
Brentley?
Yes.
In the past, the $3.37 million for the growth positions on district enrollment, have we budgeted for that in the past, or have we just kind of left it up to higher students getting more funding from the state?
Well, in the past, or if you remember for this year's budget, there was some, I forgot how many positions, almost 60 that we put back in place. A combination, I think, of putting in some new folks, but also adding some positions for growth. The money comes from when the state tells us what our allocation is for the base student cost. That's based on the current year's 45 or 90 or 135 day. Knowing that we're going to grow 700 to 1,000 students, I'll take that formula and calculate what I think will get in new revenue because of those new students, which will offset the cost for those growth positions. It's not a one-to-one, but it's better than nothing. So it's if we didn't have that, we could do a lot more with some other things. But we're in a growing area, and this is something we'll have to deal with for a long time.
So we did or didn't budget for something like this last year?
We did,
Okay.
yes.
And then the only other comment I'd see on there, it's going to rub some people the wrong way and then maybe put some smiles on some other faces, but I see that we want to hire 3 different administrative associates. If those departments are getting by right now without an administrative associate, maybe best just to hire 1 or 2 and reserve the other funds to put maybe your teacher or something like that back in a classroom, or give the teachers in the classroom some support with those other monies, is the comment I'd make on that one. I mean, everybody's being forced to do more with less, I think at all businesses, so if they're surviving right now without 3 administrative assistants, maybe try getting by with 1 and taking that extra money and putting it to the classroom teachers and putting our money where our mouth is and helping educate the kids. So, just something to think about.
Yeah, I would jump in and say I agree to a degree. When I look at that grant writer position, and having had to write grants before, and I hope I never have to write another one because I hated every minute of it, that takes up so much staff time and administrative assistant time. And sometimes we miss opportunities because we don't have someone devoted to that, and to have the assistants, to help with that data, that needs to be pulled together. So, that's the struggle with some of these lines like this for me, is you can't just put a grant writer in place either and expect that all that data and information can come together as quickly as it needs to, because there are deadlines and some of them are quite large and take a lot of time.
And having, I would echo that, having a dedicated person to make sure we're asking for what we can support. For example, if we're putting in a lot of salaries, we want to make sure there are enough fringe benefits to help, because in the past we've been caught with that, with not having that in the grant. So we want to have somebody dedicated that knows all those pieces and have a process as well. Mr. Franchini also reminded me too that there's a new Department of Labor ruling coming down that will impact school districts related to, I call it a white collar overtime rule. So we're looking at that to make sure we don't negatively impact expenditures, but also have a mechanism in place to watch it as well. And that's not just school, it's everywhere.
Right, that was just last week.
Yes, it was.
Last question, Mr. Chairman. What is our best enrollment projection increase for next year? Do we have a good idea of what that's going to be? I know you never know until they
show up.
Until they show up.
Well, what I've typically done, and if you remember in prior presentations, I've taken the 135-day from the prior year to the current year,
Right.
and that number has been typically around 750 on average. So that's the number I used. So, if it's more than that, we'll have more revenue, but we'll also have the need to maybe place those other 10 teachers as well. So
750. Thank you.
continuing on with the budget calendar, we wanted to repurpose that and show you again what we have coming up June 14th and June 28th with the proposed budget reading and the public hearing. I do have a draft of the public hearing notice that will have to go in the paper 15 days prior to the 28th, and we'll show you a picture of that as well. Also wanted to remind you at the 14th meeting, we'll also have some bond resolutions to introduce related to our tax anticipation note, annual payments for installment revenue purchase bonds and money for capital improvements, and potential bond refunding as well. We had talked about that in the past, and this really doesn't come up until 2017, but we're going to do advanced refunding because market rates are starting to go up, and we want to get it before those rates go up. So, and then we'll also be issuing the last piece of the referendum as well. Here is the public hearing notice, and you should have a copy you can read, but this again is the form that we've used historically and is required by state code to do. And so you can see the format of that and how it looks, and will go in the paper. I think I pegged it for like June 8th or 9th, whatever that Sunday is. And the public hearing notice has, we did a range of 0 mills to 3.94 mills, just to have the option in there. But again, all this is predicated on the increase of the mills for, as we're allowed to on Act 3D8.
I have just a couple of closing comments. I think it's important for the board and the public and the audience to know that we were able to do this budget that you've had a look at this evening without jeopardizing bond rating,
Yes.
and by maintaining about somewhere between a 17 and an 18.5% fund reserve.
Right.
And the 1.5 million that we talked about returning to the budget from our difference in our new hires and our retirees have allowed us to address supplies on a
Right.
one-year
Mhm.
basis.
Right.
And also to put as much as $600,000 into small capital projects, knowing that we're on a tight time frame. But I think that I would like to again thank all of those who contributed to the process. And it has been, and it will continue to be, a team effort to bring you the best possible opportunities for our students and our schools that we can with the funds that we have. I would commend Brantley and Diane especially for looking so creatively at the technology budget that we currently have to actually move us off of talking about a one-to-one initiative and actually implementing a one-to-one initiative with a 3-year strategic approach that every kid, 3rd grade through 12th grade, will take home a device, likely a Chromebook, but a device, depending on grade levels and what kind of inventory we're building off of. And our teachers, over a 3-year time period, will all have an opportunity to have a portable device that they take home with them as well. So there are many positives that we were able to achieve, and I think that looking as creatively as we could as what we had with what we had available has allowed us to develop a budget that I think will meet many of the needs, not all, because we're probably never going to meet them all, but certainly meet a lot of the things that have been identified as critical.
I think Diane just told me that some will be showing up tomorrow, right? So.
Okay, good. I know I've been signing POs. Okay?
Yeah, right. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Brandon.
I know that we were trying to deploy the St. Stephen's one-to-one as a pilot. I'm not sure if we got there or not. Diane, would you mind just commenting on what we're trying to do there? Because I think it's so exciting. If you'd come to the microphone, please, and just tell us. I know we ran into some little glitches with the Wi-Fi on the buses, but it is out there and it is going to be seeable and touchable. Would you share?
Yes, I've been working with Google for probably 5 or 6 months to work this, to work out having Wi-Fi on the buses, so that we selected 2 of the longest routes from St. Stephen's Elementary. And last week, one bus, actually, we started, I think it was Wednesday of last week. That bus was full, all the students on that bus had their, we had book bags with luggage tags on them for their serial number, their name, and they had their Chromebooks on the bus. And I'll send them to Miss Blackburn to send you, but we had some really good pictures of the kids. They were so excited. And Elaine Norton said every morning they've been bringing them all back in, and that they're really excited, and have to show her every day when they come back, look what I have. So it's been good. I've been working with Google. They wanted this to be a proof of concept with these 2 buses, but we had problems, some mechanical issues with the second bus. So what we decided today is we're going to take a bus that's going to be used for activities, like some summer camps, and then for athletic events. And we're going to go ahead and put the Wi-Fi on that bus, so it's not a bus that sits in a lot all summer. So we'll be able to use that bus to continue the testing of this. The connectivity, but they filter back through our filter, so I mean it was really exciting. So, and I had techs ride the buses for 3 days. So.
Yeah. I was so excited when I talked to Elaine, and she said the kids were coming to her and saying, "Oh, I ride that bus, because we did it as a limited rollout, and we were only able to serve 2 buses, and so they were trying to get on that bus, even if they were not legitimately assigned to it." So we're very excited, and just think about what it's going to be next year when we have 1/3 of our kids that are, walking home every day or riding a bus home with a device that goes with them and that's functional even if they don't have Wi-Fi. But we're also working with our local internet providers to talk about affordable rates if they don't already have them for families that may be identified as low income.
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chairman. I'm very excited about this program. I want to thank you for saying one thing, and we need to say it over and over and over again. A lot of the naysayers, part of my generation, believe that the children are going to damage the Chromebooks, are going to lose them, they're going to be stolen. Research shows the exact opposite. So let's keep sharing that message. But what I get excited about is you're now giving children who may or may not have the ability to access the internet at home from the time you pick them up till the time you drop them off. That's fantastic. Yeah, well, that's 2 additional hours that they can do homework and read, and that's exciting. Very exciting. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. McQuillan has made it in time for dinner. I just wanted to
So noted.
let these minutes reflect he is now with us.
He was 15 minutes away 30 minutes ago.
That's not Charleston traffic.
Some of you may have seen the article in the paper, or I don't know where I remember seeing it, but there were some schools in California that were doing something very similar to what we're talking about here. And they were taking the buses and leaving them in the community over the weekends. And they showed pictures of the kids propped up against the bus, sitting in a parking lot with their devices and on the weekends and thing. And no vandalism has occurred to any of those buses. And we're talking about, I think it's downtown Los Angeles. That's just unheard of. But these are the visions of the future. And this is where I would like to see this county going, that these kids, no matter where they live in this county, they have access to be able to get on the internet and get the information that's out there for them. And because we all know the information's out there. Any other comments?
I think that's in the right direction, and I'm very proud to see that Berkeley County School District is going in that direction. Because now, when you're talking about sharing the educational load throughout, it's a positive way of doing it. And I'm very glad to see that we're going in that direction.
Is there any more information?
I think we covered it, and I'm amazed. You all are fast workers.
We're hungry, Superintendent.
Well, I hope dinner's here. That's all I can say. I think you're faster than the food cart might be.
Well, then that moves us to agenda item number 4. Do I have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Second. I'm glad you're here.
I will have a motion to adjourn. It's been seconded. Any discussion? Of course not. All of those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please respond by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Then we're adjourned until 6:30.